Once upon a time, in a bustling town full of traders, laughter and noise, there lived a wealthy woman named Sandra. She was not only rich but also kind. People in the town respected her because she had a good heart. If someone was sick, Sandra would send food. If a neighbor lacked money for rent, she would quietly help. She was known for her strength, her kindness, and the way she carried herself with dignity. Sandra was married to a man called Michael. On the outside, Michael looked perfect. He was handsome, well-dressed, and his smile charmed everyone. But behind that smile were hidden weaknesses. Michael loved attention. He loved praise. He liked to be admired, but he was not always strong in character. Sandra did not see this fully at first, because love made her patient, and she always believed the best about him. In Sandra's household, a loyal maid named Joy worked. Joy was young, but she was wise beyond her years. She worked hard and served faithfully. More than a maid, she was like a younger sister to Sandra. She cleaned the house, cooked meals, and cared for the small details that made the home comfortable. Sandra trusted Joy because Joy was honest and never took her kindness for granted. Every morning, Joy swept the compound as the sun rose slowly in the sky. She often looked at her madam with admiration. Sandra was a woman every other woman wished to be like, strong, gentle, and respected. Joy prayed that one day she too could live with such dignity. For a while, the household seemed peaceful. Sandra was busy with her work and charity. Joy kept the home neat and warm. Michael went out every day looking confident and important. To everyone outside, it looked like a perfect family. But life often hides cracks beneath smooth walls. Small things began to shift in the house, like a quiet wind before a storm. Joy noticed first. She was the maid, yes, but she was also an observer. A house always whispers to those who pay attention, and Joy paid attention. At night, Michael's phone rang more than usual. His voice grew soft, almost secretive when he answered. Sometimes he smiled in a way that did not reach his eyes. Joy noticed. She felt uneasy. But for now, Sandra remained unaware. She trusted her husband. She believed her home was safe. She could not yet see the shadow slowly creeping up to her door. And so, the story of Sandra, Michael, and the faithful maid Joy began to unfold. The peace in Sandra's home began to change quietly, like a drumbeat no one else could hear. At first it was little things. Joy, while sweeping or serving tea, noticed Michael stepping aside to take calls. His voice dropped low, as if he was afraid the walls might hear him. He laughed strangely, a soft laugh, almost shy, the kind of laugh a man gives when he is speaking to someone he should not. One evening, Joy was carrying a tray into the sitting room. Michael was on the phone. "Yes, don't worry, I'll see you soon," he said with a smile that disappeared as soon as he saw her. He cleared his throat quickly. "Ah, Joy, just leave the tray there." Joy obeyed, but her heart was heavy. She tried to brush it off, but the feeling stayed. A few days later, Sandra prepared to travel for an important business meeting. She kissed Michael goodbye and promised to return in a few days. Joy stood at the gate as her madam's car drove away, waving until the vehicle disappeared into the street. The moment Sandra left, the house felt different. Michael's steps grew lighter, his phone calls became longer, and Joy felt the change deep in her chest. That very afternoon, a delivery boy arrived at the gate with a small gift bag. "For Mr. Michael," he said. Joy collected it. The tag had only one name written in careful letters: Grace. Later that evening, Michael's phone rang again. Joy was close by, arranging dishes in the kitchen, when she heard the same name whispered. "Grace, you worry too much," Michael said in a low tone. "Sandra has traveled. You can come. No one will disturb us." Joy froze. She almost dropped the plate in her hand. Grace, the same name on the gift, the same name she now heard Michael mention. That night, she could not sleep. She turned on her mat, whispering to herself, "Who is this Grace? What does she want in this house?" The next day it was late afternoon, and Michael had just returned from work then. A few hours later, Joy saw a young woman arrive at the gate. She was dressed boldly, her eyes sharp, her steps confident. "I am looking for Michael," she said, her lips curling into a smile. Joy's chest tightened. She showed the woman into the house. From a corner, she watched carefully as Michael welcomed her with too much excitement, almost forgetting Joy was there. The woman carried herself like someone who already owned the place. Joy now understood. This Grace was not just a visitor, she was a threat. But Joy also knew her place. She was only a maid. If she spoke without proof, it might look like gossip. Sandra trusted her, yes, but Sandra also loved her husband deeply. It was not enough to suspect. Sandra needed to see with her own eyes. That evening, Joy sat alone in her small room. She clasped her hands together, thinking hard. If Madame does not see this with her own eyes, she will never believe me. Grace is clever. She acts like she belongs, lies she is a relative or a work assistant. If Madame Sandra returns as herself, Grace will pretend to respect her, but if she returns as a maid, then Grace will show her true face. Joy nodded to herself. The plan was bold, maybe even risky, but it was the only way. She would protect her madam, even if it meant turning the whole house upside down. The sun was already leaning toward evening when Sandra's car finally pulled into the compound 2 days later. Dust clung to the tires, and the tired hum of the engine echoed the mood of the woman inside. Sandra had been away for days, moving from one meeting to another, carrying the weight of important discussions and heavy decisions. Her body longed for rest, her mind longed for quiet. As she stepped down from the car, Joy rushed forward to help with her bags. "Welcome, madam," Joy said, her voice warm but a little shaky. Sandra smiled faintly. "Thank you, Joy. I am very tired. I just want to bathe and rest my head." She handed Joy her small handbag and began walking toward the door, her steps slow, her shoulders drooping. But Joy did not move right away. Her heart beat fast. She had spent days thinking of what she had seen and heard. She knew this was the moment. If she kept quiet, things would continue in secret. If she spoke, maybe, just maybe, truth would finally come out. Sandra had barely reached the sitting room when Joy spoke. "Madam, please, I beg you, just pretend to be a maid." Sandra turned sharply, her face full of surprise. "What did you just say?" Joy clasped her hands together, stepping closer. "Please, madam, pretend to be a maid. You'll understand later, I promise." Sandra frowned, confused and offended. She dropped onto the sofa, sighing. "Joy, I just came back from a long journey. My body aches, my head is heavy. And you stand here with drama? What nonsense is this? Why should I, in my own house, pretend to be a maid?" Joy bent low, her eyes full of desperation. "Please, madam, just listen to me. If anyone asks you anything, tell them I am on leave and you are my replacement. Just for now, just play along." Sandra sat upright slowly, her eyes narrowing. "Anyone? What do you mean by anyone? This is my house. Who else could ask me anything except you or my husband?" Joy pressed her lips together. She wanted to explain everything, the calls, the gifts, the woman named Grace, but fear held her tongue. If she spoke too soon, it might sound like gossip. If she spoke wrongly, it could break everything. Instead, she lowered her gaze and repeated softly, "Madam, you will understand later. I promise." Sandra leaned back against the sofa, staring at Joy as if she had gone mad. Her chest rose and fell slowly, her breath heavy from both travel and annoyance. "Do you hear yourself, Joy? You want me to strip off my dignity and act like a maid in my own house? After working for days, after traveling far, this is what you welcome me with? If you are joking, it is a very bad joke." Joy shook her head quickly, her eyes pleading. "It is not a joke, madam. It is serious, very serious. Please trust me, just this once." Sandra stood, her tiredness giving way to anger. "I am not in the mood for riddles, Joy. Speak clearly or let me rest." Joy's hands trembled. She wanted to tell everything at once, but fear made her voice small. "Madam, I cannot explain now. It will spoil everything. Just trust me. Just pretend." Sandra walked toward her bedroom, muttering, "This is madness. Complete madness." She paused at the door, her hand on the handle. She looked back at Joy, who was standing with tears almost filling her eyes. The look on Joy's face was not the look of a liar. It was the look of someone carrying a heavy secret, someone begging to be believed. Sandra sighed deeply. Against her pride, against her better judgment, she felt her heart soften. She dropped her handbag on the floor and turned.
Joy, if I agree to this nonsense, it is not because I believe in it. It is because I trust you. You have served me faithfully for years. If your spirit tells you to do this, then I will follow you, for now. Joy's shoulders dropped in relief. She almost cried. Thank you, madam. Thank you. You will not regret this. Sandra raised a finger. But hear me well. If I find out this is just foolishness, I will not forgive you easily. Yes, madam, Joy said quickly, nodding again and again. Sandra shook her head and muttered, What kind of madness have I agreed to? That night, after bathing, Sandra removed her fine clothes and jewelry. She placed her pearl earrings on the table, unfastened her golden necklace, and slipped out of her elegant gown. From her wardrobe, she pulled out a plain cotton dress, the kind Joy usually wore for housework. She tied a simple scarf over her hair, wiped off her light makeup, and looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back did not look like Sandra, the respected businesswoman. She looked like an ordinary maid. Sandra touched the mirror, her fingers trembling. A stranger in my own house. She turned from the mirror and walked back into the sitting room where Joy waited nervously. Joy's eyes widened. Perfect, madam. Now anyone who sees you will believe you are my replacement. Sandra folded her arms across her chest. This better lead somewhere, Joy, because right now I feel like a fool. Joy smiled sadly. I promise you, madam. Very soon you will understand. Sandra looked away, her heart heavy with confusion. Tension hung in the air like a rope pulled too tight. She wondered, what kind of madness have I allowed myself to enter? What will I see? The night was quiet, but Sandra's mind was not. The air was cool, and the flowers in the garden rested their heads like children after play. Sandra sat on the edge of her bed, still wearing the plain cotton dress and simple scarf. The disguise felt strange on her skin. It was not heavy, but it carried weight in her heart. She waited for Michael. The hours moved slowly. 10 o'clock came, 11, midnight. The house sighed with quiet. No door opened. No footsteps sounded in the corridor. Michael did not come home. He did not send a message. He did not call. Sandra looked at the muted light on her bedside table and told herself not to think too much. She had returned a week earlier from her trip. Michael was not expecting her tonight. Maybe he had decided to sleep at the office. Maybe a late meeting held him back. Maybe the roads were bad, and he chose to stay safe. She folded all her fears into that single word, maybe, and pushed them away. At last she lay down. Sleep came in small pieces. She woke at every car sound outside, then drifted again. By morning her eyes felt dry and her neck ached. Still she kept calm. She had made a choice to be patient. She would see this through. After a simple breakfast, she called Joy. Go out for me, Sandra said in her soft voice. Buy the list of items we need for the week. Take your time. I want to rest today before I return to work tomorrow. Joy looked worried. Should I leave you alone, madam? Sandra gave a small smile. I will be fine. Lock the gate when you go, but leave the main door open, in case Michael comes. Joy hesitated, then nodded. I will hurry back. When Joy left, the house felt large and hollow. Sandra moved through the rooms in her plain dress, touching a chair here, straightening a napkin there, as if the furniture needed a kind hand to keep it from feeling lonely. She told herself she would lie down for a moment just to rest her back. Then came a knock. It was firm and quick, not the way neighbors knock, not the way a delivery boy knocks. The sound jolted her heart. Michael, she thought. He must have come back early. She pushed aside her tiredness and hurried toward the door, already forming the words to tease him gently for staying out all night without a message. She pulled the door open and stopped. A young woman stood at the threshold, dressed in flashy clothes that shone even without sunlight. Her lips were painted bright, her nails long and neat, her perfume too strong for morning. She held her bag like it was a trophy. She smiled a practiced smile. Good morning, the woman said. I'm Grace. The name hit Sandra like cold water. She kept her face still. I'm a family friend, Grace continued, stepping forward without being invited. She looked around as if measuring the house in her head. Michael said I should wait for him here. He told me to make myself comfortable. Sandra's fingers tightened around the edge of the door. She stepped back slowly and let Grace enter. "Welcome," Sandra said in a low voice. "Please sit." Grace's eyes traveled over Sandra from head to toe, the plain dress, the simple scarf, the quiet posture. She blinked once, then smiled wider, the way a cat smiles at a bird that does not know it is in danger. "Where is Joy?" Grace asked, moving toward the sofa. "The maid. She went out for errands." Grace lifted her chin. "Good. And you? Who are you?" Sandra swallowed. Her heart banged against her ribs. The words felt bitter, but she let them out. "I am the second maid. I'm learning from her. I will replace her while she is on leave." Grace's smile widened into a grin. "Ah, perfect. 2 maids. That is better. When I finally become the true lady of this house, I won't have to stress. I like things soft. I like to feel like a queen." She said it carelessly, like a joke, but her eyes were not joking. They were sharp, quick, and hungry. She crossed her legs and looked around with ownership, as if she were checking where her throne would stand. Sandra stood still. The room seemed to move away from her, like a tide pulling back from shore. She heard the words again, "true lady of this house," and felt her stomach twist. Her tongue was dry, but she kept her voice calm. "Would you like water?" she asked. "Cold juice," Grace said, waving her hand. "I didn't eat before coming." She leaned back and laughed softly. "I just wanted to be here early. When you're important to a man, you don't wait for him to call twice. You go where you belong." "Where do you belong?" The words hung in the air like smoke. Sandra turned toward the kitchen. Her steps were careful, steady. Inside, she held the counter and closed her eyes. A wave of heat rose to her face, then dropped. She opened the fridge, found juice, poured it into a glass, and set a small plate of biscuits on a tray. Her hands did not shake. They simply moved, because they had to. When she returned, Grace had already kicked off her heels and stretched her legs on the sofa. She looked like a person trying on a house to see if it fit. "Here you go," Sandra said, placing the tray down. Grace sipped the juice and clicked her tongue. "Not cold enough, but it will do." She squinted at Sandra as if trying to remember her face. "How long have you been working here?" "Not long," Sandra said. "Good," Grace replied, pleased. "New maids don't form habits. I will teach you my style. When I move in, I like my mornings quiet. No noise, no banging, no people walking up and down like they are in the market." She took another sip. "Joy will handle the heavy cleaning. You will handle the gentle things. My room, my clothes, my bath water, my meals. 2 maids will make life sweet. I love to be spoiled." Sandra's mouth opened, then closed. Her mind heard the words, but her heart could not accept them. She stood with her hands folded, staring at the woman who had come into her home and made a throne out of her sofa. Grace leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper filled with pride. "Let me tell you something, but don't repeat it. Soon this house will have a new owner. Some rules will change, some people will step aside." She smiled slowly. "A queen is coming." Sandra felt her pulse in her throat. Her fingers dug into her palms, but her face stayed calm. The disguise protected her like a thin raincoat in a storm. It did not stop the rain, but it kept her from losing herself. "Where is Michael's study?" Grace asked suddenly. "I want to put down a few things I brought for him." Sandra pointed quietly. "That door." Grace stood, picked up her bag, and started toward the study. Then she stopped and looked back at Sandra with a playful tilt of her head. "What did you say your name was?" she asked. Sandra's lips parted, then settled. "You can call me Sarah," she said, the first simple name that came to her tongue. "Fine," Grace said. "Sarah, I like obedience. If I tell you something, do it well. I don't like repeating myself." She winked and disappeared into the study, leaving her perfume floating in the air like a flag. Sandra remained where she stood. The house felt both too small and too large. She could see her life from above, her work, her care, her quiet love, and then she could see this moment, a stranger claiming space with more confidence than truth. Her heart whispered, "Hold your ground. Watch. Learn." Her pride shouted, "End this now. Throw her out." Her wisdom answered, "Not yet. Let the light reveal everything." Sandra breathed in slowly and let the air out. The day had only begun, and already it felt heavy. She looked down at her plain dress and thought, what kind of madness is this disguise? What storm have I walked into? From the study, drawers opened and closed as if a new owner was testing them. The sound cut through Sandra's chest like paper, but she stood still. She had chosen to see with her own eyes. She would not turn away now. Outside, a cloud passed over the sun, and the room dimmed for a moment. When the light returned, Sandra lifted her chin. Her eyes were clear. The Queen had announced herself. The real lady of the house was ready to listen. Grace returned from Michael's study as if she already owned it. She dropped her bag on the sofa and stretched like a cat in warm sunlight. Her eyes swept over Sandra, who still stood quietly in her plain dress, hands folded before her. "You," Grace said sharply, pointing a finger. "Stop standing like a tree. Come here. Bow properly when you speak to me." Sandra's breath caught in her chest, but she lowered her head slowly. Her pride burned like fire in her stomach. "Good," Grace said, satisfied. "At least you know your place. Now fetch me another glass of juice, and this time, make sure it is cold. I don't want to taste warm nonsense again." Sandra walked to the kitchen, her steps steady though her heart shook. She opened the fridge and pulled out the coldest juice she could find. She poured it into a clean glass and carried it back on a tray. Grace did not even say thank you. She sipped, smacked her lips loudly and said, "Better, you see? If you listen well, you can serve me well. Now kneel and mop this floor. It looks dusty." Sandra froze. "The floor is clean," she said softly. Grace's eyes narrowed. "Did I ask for your opinion? Or are you now above orders?" Sandra pressed her lips together. Slowly she went to fetch a bucket of water and a mop. She knelt on the cold tiles and began to scrub, her knees aching under her weight. Grace watched with a cruel smile. "You are too slow. You move like a pregnant goat. No wonder you are so fat and lazy. Tell me, do they feed you too much here? Or is this how you came from that poor village you crawled out of?" Sandra's chest tightened. Her hand shook on the mop, but she said nothing. "Look at you," Grace sneered. "Useless. Even for ordinary mopping you are struggling. By the time I become madam, I will make sure weak maids like you are sent back where they belong. You will carry your load back to your father's hut in the village." Sandra's eyes burned, but she kept her head bowed. When Grace grew tired of watching, she snapped her fingers. "Drop that mop and come here." Sandra obeyed, placing the mop aside. "Massage my feet," Grace ordered, kicking off her slippers. Sandra's head rose slightly. "That is not part of my duty," she said, her voice low but firm. "I am not a masseuse." Grace's face hardened. In one swift move, she raised her hand and slapped Sandra across the cheek. The sound cracked in the room like a whip. Sandra gasped. Her palm flew to her face. Grace leaned forward, her voice sharp and cruel. "Don't ever talk back to me again. Do you want to lose this job? I will tell Michael to throw you out without a single coin. I will make sure you return to that dirty little village where you belong. One word from me, and you are finished." Sandra's chest rose and fell quickly. Tears pressed at the corners of her eyes, but she swallowed them back. She bent down slowly, trembling, and began to massage Grace's feet with her bare hands. Grace laughed, throwing her head back. "That's better. You see? You are nothing but a maid. When I become madam, even your madam will be chased away. I will sit on this sofa like a queen, and both of you will kneel before me. Do you hear me? Both of you." Sandra's hands pressed into Grace's skin. Her mind screamed, "This is my house, this is my chair, this—" but her lips stayed shut. Grace reached for Sandra's small bottle of expensive oil sitting on the table. "Use this," she ordered, tossing it at her. "Massage properly. Don't be lazy. Make me feel like the queen I am." Sandra opened the bottle, the scent of her own oil filling her nose, mocking her. She rubbed it gently into Grace's feet, her heart sinking deeper with every stroke. Grace sighed with pleasure. That's it. Yes, this is the life I deserve. 2 maids at my service, a big house, A rich man who loves me, and soon the entire neighborhood will know who truly rules here. Not that useless madam of yours, but me, Grace." She laughed again, a cruel sound that echoed against the clean walls of the house Sandra built with her sweat and sacrifice. Sandra kept massaging, her face lowered, but inside her chest, something strong was rising. She had chosen to disguise herself to see the truth, and now the truth was uglier than she had imagined. Her pride was wounded, her heart was burning, but her spirit whispered, "Be patient, watch, endure. The day of revelation is coming." Meanwhile, Grace yawned loudly and stretched her arms as if she had done hard work. She picked up her phone, typed quickly, then looked around with narrowed eyes. Her gaze fell on the corridor that led to the bedrooms. "Sarah," she called, using the false name Sandra had given. "Which one is your madam's room?" Sandra stiffened. "Madam's room?" she asked, keeping her voice soft. "Yes," Grace said carelessly, standing to her feet. "Don't keep standing there like a big fool." Sandra's chest grew tight, but she pointed reluctantly toward the master bedroom. Grace smiled with satisfaction and marched toward it like she owned the place. Sandra followed slowly, her feet heavy. Grace pushed the door open and walked straight inside. She glanced around, her eyes shining at the sight of the wide bed, the neat dressing table, and the wardrobe that stood tall and proud. "So this is it," she whispered, almost to herself. "Sandra's room." Sandra stood quietly by the door, her hand on the frame, watching. Grace opened the wardrobe without hesitation. She pulled out dresses, one after another, holding them against her body and turning in front of the mirror. "This red one. Ah, Michael will love it on me," she said with a giggle. Sandra's lips parted, but no words came out. Her fists trembled by her side. Then Grace saw a row of wigs neatly arranged on the top shelf. She gasped and clapped her hands. "Perfect. These are the ones he bought, isn't it? Michael told me he chose them himself. He said he imagined me in them." Sandra's heart squeezed like a fist inside her chest. Grace reached up, grabbed a long black wig and placed it on her head. She turned to the mirror and struck a pose. "Look at me. Do I not look more beautiful than your madam? Soon, very soon, she will be gone, and this room will be mine. Everything she owns will belong to me." Sandra could no longer keep silent. She stepped forward, her voice low but firm. "Please, madam," she said carefully, "this wig does not belong to you. It belongs to my madam. She will not be happy if she finds out you touched her things." Grace spun around, her eyes sharp. "And who asked for your opinion? Did I ask you to speak? You're only a maid." Sandra took a breath, forcing herself to stay calm. "I am only reminding you that you are a family friend. My madam respects her things. It is not good to—" Before she could finish, Grace shoved her hard by the shoulder. Sandra stumbled back, catching herself on the wall. "Don't lecture me!" Grace shouted, her voice loud enough to shake the air. "You think because you serve here, you can tell me what to do? Foolish. Good for a good-for-nothing maid. Do you know who I am? I am the woman Michael loves. I am the one who will replace Sandra. Soon you will kneel for me, not her." Sandra's heart pounded. She wanted to shout, to reveal herself, to tell Grace, "You are standing in my room. You are wearing my wig." But she held herself back. Grace picked up a glass of water from the bedside table. With one quick, angry motion, she flung it straight at Sandra. The water splashed across her dress, soaking her chest and scarf. Drops ran down her face. She gasped, her body shaking from both the cold and the insult. Grace laughed harshly. "Take that. Maybe it will cool your head. Next time keep your mouth shut unless I tell you to speak." Sandra stood frozen for a moment, the water dripping down her chin. Her fists clenched so tightly her nails bit into her palms. Her chest heaved. Every part of her screamed to tear off the scarf, throw the wig to the floor, and expose Grace for what she was. But she did not. She swallowed her pride like bitter medicine. Sandra stormed out of her bedroom, her dress still damp from the water Grace had thrown at her. Her chest burned with anger, her fists still tight. She wanted to scream. She wanted to tear away the disguise and throw Grace out of the house like dirt, but she swallowed it all,
carrying the storm inside her. She paced the corridor, trying to calm her breath when she heard a soft ding from inside the bedroom. A phone. Grace's phone. Sandra paused, listening. Grace laughed lightly, the sound sharp like glass. "Michael," she whispered to herself, picking up her phone. Sandra froze. She leaned against the wall, her ear tilted toward the door. Inside, Grace read the message aloud in a mocking tone. "He won't make it home tonight. But he will return in the morning." She giggled, biting her lip. "Oh, Michael, you always have excuses, but I know your game." She quickly dialed his number. Sandra's heart jumped. She held her breath. "Baby," Grace said into the phone, her voice sweet like honey. "I just got your message. Don't worry, I understand. You are busy. Yes, I know." She giggled again. "You don't have to explain, my love. I trust you." Sandra pressed a hand to her chest. Her pulse raced. Yes, Grace continued, her voice soft and playful. "Just promise me you'll come tomorrow. I will prepare your favorite meal, the one you love so much. You know how I make it better than anyone else." She paused, smiling at his reply. "Yes, baby. I'll be waiting. I love you too." The call ended with a small laugh. Grace tossed the phone on the bed and sighed deeply, almost dreamily. But then Grace's face changed. Her smile turned sly. She spoke aloud to herself, not knowing Sandra was listening just outside. "I know where you are, Michael," she muttered. "You think you are smart, out there with another side chick. But unlike your clueless wife, I know how to play this game. You will be mine completely, very soon. Because I know how to treat a man like you." Sandra's knees nearly gave way and her head swirled. Michael with another woman, not just Grace. Her heart shattered into pieces. It was not one betrayal, it was many. Her mouth opened. She wanted to rush in, tear off her scarf and confront Grace. She wanted to scream Michael's name and expose everything. But just as she moved, a hand caught her arm. It was Joy. She had returned quietly from her errand and now stood beside Sandra, her eyes wide with fear. "Madam, no," Joy whispered. "Please calm down, don't spoil the plan now." Sandra trembled. Tears filled her eyes, burning hot. "Did you hear what she said? Michael is with another woman." "Another?" Joy held her hand firmly. "I heard, but this is not the time. If you burst out now, you will not know the full truth. Let her talk. Let her show her real face. The bottom of the matter must come out. Please, for your own sake, wait." Sandra's chest rose and fell quickly. Her throat ached. She pressed her lips together to hold back the cry of pain. Joy squeezed her hand again. "Be patient, madam. Patience will uncover everything. And when it does, no one will be able to deny it." Inside the room, Grace stretched luxuriously on the bed, speaking to herself again as if she were already queen. "Soon I will control this house and all its wealth," she said proudly. "Sandra's days are numbered. Once Michael is fully mine, everything he has will be under my command. This house, his money, his name, all of it. I will be the true lady here." Her laughter echoed down the corridor, mocking, cruel, and confident. Sandra leaned against the wall, her heart breaking. She looked at Joy, who still held her arm firmly, grounding her in the storm. Sandra whispered through clenched teeth. "She is in my bed, wearing my wig, calling my husband hers. How much more must I endure?" Joy's eyes softened. "Endure just a little longer. Truth is already exposing itself step by step. Let her boast. The higher she climbs in her pride, the harder she will fall." Sandra shut her eyes tight. Her soul screamed inside her chest, but she stayed silent. For now. The next morning came with pale sunlight streaming through the curtains. Sandra had hardly slept. She lay awake, her body tired but her mind restless. Every word Grace had spoken the night before still rang in her ears. By mid-morning, the sound of a car pulling into the compound broke the heavy silence. Sandra froze. Joy, who was tidying the living room, looked up quickly. Michael had returned. The gate opened, and the familiar sound of his footsteps approached. Before Sandra could even move, Grace flew from the sofa like an excited bride. She straightened her wig in the mirror, powdered her nose, and hurried to the door. "Baby!" Grace cried,
rushing forward as Michael stepped inside. She threw her arms around him. "Welcome home. I missed you so much." Michael blinked in surprise but hugged her lightly, his face unsure. "Grace, what are you doing here?" "I came to wait for you, of course," Grace said sweetly, pulling him toward the sofa. "Sit down, you must be tired. Don't worry, I'll make sure everything is ready. Your favorite banga stew, hot and sweet, just the way you like it." Michael frowned slightly. "Banga stew?" "Yes," Grace chirped. "You love it, don't you?" Michael sat down slowly, confusion spreading across his face. But only Sandra knows how to make it the way I like, he thought. His eyes darted toward the kitchen for a brief moment, but he said nothing. As Grace fussed over him, bringing water and adjusting cushions, she began to rant. "Baby, your maids are the worst, especially that fat one, Sarah. She is rude, lazy, and useless. Can you believe she even argued with me when I asked for something? If I were you, I would sack her today." Michael's head turned sharply. "Sarah," he repeated, his eyebrows knitting together. "Yes, Sarah," Grace said, rolling her eyes. "The one replacing Joy." Michael's eyes narrowed. "Replacing Joy? What do you mean? Joy is the most hard-working and obedient maid I have ever known. She has been with us for years, and we don't have any maid named Sarah." Grace faltered, then laughed awkwardly. "Oh, maybe I got the name wrong, but still she is very disrespectful. You need to do something about her." Michael leaned back slowly, studying Grace's face. A small knot of suspicion tightened in his chest. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Meanwhile, Sandra stood in the kitchen, her hands pressed against the counter. She had heard every word. She heard Grace's sweet lies to Michael, her bold claims about the stew, her shameless rant about Sarah. Sandra clenched her jaw. Her heart screamed to rush out and end the act, but she reminded herself of Joy's words. The higher Grace climbs in her pride, the harder she will fall. She stayed hidden, waiting, her chest rising and falling heavily. In the sitting room, Michael's eyes shifted again toward the kitchen door. A flicker of unease crossed his face. His instincts told him his real wife was closer than he realized. His hands tapped against his knee, his eyes narrowing at every word Grace spoke. Something about her tone, her confidence, her actions, everything made his chest tighten. There was only one thing on his mind now: how to get Grace out of the house before Sandra returned from her trip. He had known Joy for years. Joy never argued. Joy was loyal to a fault. How could this stranger sit here and claim that a maid called Sarah was lazy and rude? There was no Sarah. His mind turned quickly, trying to put the pieces together. "Baby," Grace said, sliding closer to him. "Don't look so worried. Once I move in here, everything will be smooth. This house will feel like heaven." Michael blinked. "Move in here?" Grace smiled slyly. "Of course. You don't want me to stay out there when I can be here by your side, do you? Soon, this will all be ours." Michael shifted uncomfortably, his eyes flicking once more toward the kitchen. He could feel it in his bones. Something was hidden there. And then the door creaked. Sandra stepped out slowly. She was still in the plain cotton dress and scarf, but her face was tight with fury. She walked into the room without a word, her eyes locked on Grace. Grace rolled her eyes. "You again? I told you not to disturb us. Go back to the kitchen, Sarah." But Sandra did not stop. She reached up, snatched the scarf from her head and pulled it away. Her hair tumbled free. She tore the wig from Grace's head and held it high. Michael's eyes widened in shock, his face drained of color. "Sandra!" Grace froze, her lips parting, her eyes wide as the truth hit her. Sandra's voice shook with rage. "Yes, it is me, your wife, the owner of this house, and you—" She pointed at Grace, her hand trembling with fury. "You made me kneel in my own home. You called me useless. You slapped me. You poured water on me. You forced me to massage your dirty feet with my own oil. I have never treated my maid like that, not once. Yet you came here, a stranger, and treated me worse than an animal." Grace stumbled to her feet. I didn't know." "Shut your mouth," Sandra roared. "You knew what you were doing. You thought you were queen already. You thought this house belonged to you." Michael jumped to his feet, fear written all over his face. "Grace, stand up. Leave this place at once." He was desperate now,
hoping to salvage even a shred of control.
Grace's lips trembled, but her pride would not let her bow completely. "Dog! Fool!" she spat, pointing at Sandra. "You think you have won? You will regret this!" "Get out of my house!" Sandra screamed, her voice shaking the walls. "Get out before I tear you apart with my own hands!" Grace grabbed her bag, her face twisted with rage and shame, and stormed out. Her heels clattered against the tiles, her insults trailing behind her like smoke. The door slammed. Silence filled the room. Sandra turned slowly, her eyes blazing at her husband. Michael shrank under her gaze, his lips fumbling for words. "You let this happen," Sandra said, her voice breaking with pain. I pay for this house. I made you who you are. You work in my father's company because I gave you the chance. And this is what I get in return? Chronic infidelity? A parade of women? A shameless betrayal under my roof?" Michael's hands shook. "Sandra, please." "Don't you dare!" She cut him off, her finger trembling as she pointed at him. "I built you up and you dragged me down. I gave you everything and you repaid me with lies and shame." Her chest rose and fell rapidly, tears shining in her eyes but refusing to fall. She stood tall, her anger giving her strength. Michael lowered his head, unable to meet her gaze. The truth was out. The mask was gone. And in that moment, the marriage they had built stood on the edge of ruin. The sitting room was heavy with silence. The echo of Grace's insults still clung to the walls like smoke. Sandra stood in the middle of the room, her chest rising and falling as if she had carried a mountain. Michael stood a few steps away, his head lowered, his hands shaking slightly. "Sandra," he began, his voice weak. "Please, I can explain." "Explain what?" Sandra snapped, her eyes blazing. "That you let another woman march into my house and treat me like dirt. That you brought shame into the very walls I built with my sweat." Michael's lips parted, but no words came. He looked like a child caught in a lie. Sandra stepped closer, her voice breaking with pain. "I built this home, Michael. I stood by you. I paid most of the bills without complaint. I never once threw it in your face. And this is how you repay me, with outright cruelty, with betrayal, with women filling my house while you laugh behind my back?" Michael raised his palms helplessly. "Sandra, please don't say that. I was foolish. It meant nothing. You are my wife." "Wife," she interrupted, her laugh bitter. "Do you know what a wife is? A wife is not a woman you toss aside while you call and test your mistresses, even while you are with another one. A wife is not someone you leave in the dark because you think she is subdued and stupid. No, Michael, I am not stupid. I saw everything. I heard everything. And I am done." Her words struck like hammers, each one heavy with truth. Michael's face crumbled. "Sandra, don't say that. Please forgive me, we can fix this." Sandra lifted her hand, silencing him. Her voice was steady now, firm as iron. "No, Michael, I am done with this marriage. Pack your things and leave this house. Tonight, I will not share my roof with a man who shames me this way." Michael's knees bent slightly, as if her words had knocked the strength out of him. He opened his mouth to beg again, but one look at Sandra's face told him it was useless. She was no longer listening. He turned slowly, shoulders slumped, and walked out of the sitting room like a shadow. The moment he left, Sandra collapsed onto the sofa. Her strong posture broke. Her chest shook as tears finally slipped down her cheeks. Joy, who had been watching from the corner with trembling hands, rushed to her side. She knelt by Sandra, holding her hand gently. "Madam, please don't cry," Joy whispered, tears in her own eyes. "You are stronger than this pain. You are not alone." Sandra covered her face with her palms. "I gave him everything, Joy. Everything. And he gave me shame." Joy held her tightly, rocking her like a sister. "It is better to know the truth than to live in lies. You are worth more than what he gave you. Don't let this break you, madam. Don't let him win." Sandra sobbed quietly, her tears soaking into her scarf, but in her chest, a seed of strength was already sprouting. Meanwhile, across town, Grace stood with her bag clutched against her chest, fury twisting her face. Her humiliation burned like fire. She clenched her teeth and hissed to herself, Sandra thinks she has won, but I will ruin her. I will make the whole town turn against her. Within days, whispers began to spread. Grace told anyone who would listen that Sandra mistreated her husband and her servants, that she was a proud and cruel person at home, and her public image of kindness was only a front. Some people shook their heads, unsure what to believe. Rumors carried fast, and Grace wore them like a crown of revenge. Grace did not stop there. She found Michael a few days later, cornering him in his car. "Michael," she purred, leaning into the window. "Don't look so angry. This is not the end. We can still be together." Michael's face was hard. "Grace, stay away from me. You caused all this. You destroyed everything. Sandra is leaving me because of you. You are poison." Grace's smile faltered, then her eyes narrowed. "Be careful, Michael. Don't you dare reject me as if I am nothing. I know your secrets. I know about the other women. I know where you go, who you meet, and what you pay for. If you push me away, I will tell Sandra everything.
I will tell the whole world. Do you want that?" Michael's throat went dry. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. Grace leaned closer, her voice sharp as a blade. "Don't test me, Michael. You think Sandra is angry now? Wait until she hears the rest. You will lose more than your marriage. You will lose your name." She straightened, her smile returning like a mask. "So be wise. Don't make me your enemy." With that, she walked away, leaving Michael shaken, his heart pounding in his chest. Grace's poison spread quickly. Within days, whispers floated through the neighborhood.
Women at the market spoke in low tones. Men shook their heads knowingly. "Sandra mistreats her husband," some said. "She treats her servants like slaves," others added. The rumors stung Sandra deeply, even though she walked with her head high. At night, Sandra lay awake, her heart heavy. "Why is it that lies travel so fast while the truth stays hidden?" she whispered to herself. Joy, who had become her quiet strength, noticed the pain in her eyes. One evening, as Sandra sat alone in the sitting room, Joy came in carrying her phone. "Madam," she said softly, "I think it is time." Sandra looked up, tired. "Time for what, Joy?" Joy handed her the phone. On the screen was a video, grainy but clear. It was the moment Grace had made Sandra kneel, mop the floor, and massage her feet with her own oil. Grace's voice was sharp, mocking, calling her fat and useless. Sandra's eyes widened. "You recorded this?" Joy nodded. "I could not stand by and do nothing. I knew one day the truth would need a witness, and here it is. Proof that Grace was the liar all along." Sandra's lips trembled, a tear slipping down her cheek. "Joy, you saved me." With Sandra's permission, Joy uploaded the video to social media. It spread like wildfire. The same neighbors who had whispered lies now gathered in shock. "This was the madam herself?" they asked, pointing at the screen. "Grace humiliated her in her own house." The comments poured in. "How wicked. Grace is nothing but a home wrecker. Sandra is the real woman of dignity." Within days, Grace's name was ruined. Families she once boasted to avoided her. Neighbors turned their backs. Even her own relatives scolded her, calling her a disgrace. Neighbors who had believed the rumors felt ashamed. Families who had repeated lies kept quiet. The same mouths that pulled Sandra down now began to lift her name again. That same night, Sandra wiped her face, stood up straight, and made a call. "Good evening, Barrister Susan," she said calmly. "It is time." Within an hour, her lawyer arrived, neat suit, firm eyes, quiet power. "Tell me everything," Susan said, taking out her pad. Sandra told her. She spoke slowly and clearly, not to hurt herself again, but to make a record. The late-night calls, the gift bag with Grace written on it, the false welcome, the humiliation, the slap, the water, the phone call where Grace promised Banga stew, the boast, "Soon I will control this house and all its wealth." Joy added her part, the delivery tag, the unknown number that kept calling, the video she had recorded. Susan nodded, writing fast. "We will move in order," she said. "No noise, no fighting, only law." "What will we do first?" Sandra asked. "First, we will file for divorce," Susan said gently. We will add evidence, your messages, the video, and the witness statement from Joy. We will request immediate separation, an order for him to vacate this home, and protection over your property. We will also cut him off from the office, formally and cleanly, since this matter is in court, and you are the one who brought him into the company. No more room for confusion. Sandra breathed out. Do it. Susan squeezed her hand. You are not alone. Before leaving, the lawyer drafted a short, firm message and asked Sandra to send it to Michael. You will receive formal documents. Do not return here without my permission. Speak to my lawyer for anything you need. Sandra. Sandra pressed send. The message left her phone and, with it, the last piece of fear she had been holding. The next afternoon, a court bailiff handed Michael a brown envelope at his office. He opened it and felt the blood drain from his face. Petition for divorce. There it was, in black and white. Dates, events, the video link, Joy's statement, the request for him to vacate the house at once. His colleagues watched him from a distance. Whispers rose like smoke. By evening, HR called him in, faces tight and formal. Because of the ongoing scandal, they said softly, and the fact that your position came through your wife's family name, we are placing you on indefinite suspension. It was a fall he had built with his own hands. He tried to call Sandra. She did not pick up. He tried again. Nothing. He finally dialed Grace, anger and fear mixing in his voice. You did this to me, he shouted. If not for you, this wouldn't... Grace cut him off, voice like ice. Be careful how you talk to me. I warned you. I know about the other women. Do you want me to send names, places, screenshots? If you make me your enemy, I will bury your name. Michael went silent. His jaw worked, but no words came out. He ended the call and dropped his phone like it burned. Meanwhile, Grace was facing her own problem. The video kept moving. People who had once admired Grace avoided her. Aunties who used to praise her style now shook their heads. A very shameless woman, one neighbor said under her breath. Home wrecker, another muttered. Even Grace's own family called, voices hard and disappointed. You brought disgrace to our door, her uncle said. Fix yourself. Don't call us until you learn sense. Grace stopped going out in daylight. She pulled her curtains and sat on the floor with her head in her hands. The crown she had dreamed of was gone. All that was left was silence. 2 weeks later, Sandra and Michael sat in a small, clean courtroom. No shouting, no drama, just a judge, files, and truth. Barrister Susan stood and spoke for Sandra. She presented the facts, the video, the dates, the pattern of secret calls, the humiliations, the risk to Sandra's dignity and safety in her own home. Michael's lawyer tried soft words. Mistake, temporary weakness, private matter. But the judge kept looking at the evidence. The truth was already bright. It did not need a loud voice. The court granted immediate separation and an order that Michael vacate the house. Protection of Sandra's property and accounts. Recognition that Sandra had carried the major financial burden of the marriage. A clear note that Michael's conduct had caused public humiliation to his wife. When the gavel touched the wood, the sound was small, but to Sandra it sounded like a heavy door closing gently and a new door opening wider than the first. Outside the court, Michael tried to speak. Sandra, I'm sorry, he said, voice raw. I lost myself. Sandra looked at him with calm eyes, not cruel, not weak, calm. I hope you find yourself again, she replied, but not with me. Go in peace. She turned and walked away with Susan and Joy, light steps, straight back, steady breath. The locks would change that evening, not out of anger, but out of wisdom. The house smelled of fresh polish and quiet. Truth had aired the rooms. Sandra called the staff together, drivers, cleaners, and the gardener, and spoke briefly. In this house, she said, we will be fair, we will be kind, we will be safe. If anyone hurts you or disrespects you, come to me directly. I will stand for you. They nodded, relieved. It was as if the walls themselves relaxed. Then Sandra turned to Joy and smiled. Come, she said. leading her to the dining table where a neat envelope lay. "Open it." Joy's hands trembled. Inside was a letter of promotion, from maid to house manager, and a scholarship fund for evening business classes, plus seed money to start the small catering service Joy had always whispered about. "Madam," Joy's voice broke, "I don't deserve this." "You do," Sandra said, hugging her. "When I was falling, you held me up. When lies shouted, you brought truth to the door. No more kneeling, Joy. Walk beside me." They both cried a little, good tears that washed the old season away. As for Grace, the world she tried to build on pride collapsed under its own weight. Neighbors who once admired her left her messages unread. She tried to fight the storm with more lies, but the video stood like a stone in the river. Water could run, but it could not move the stone. One morning, very early, a taxi stopped by her door. She got in with a single bag. The car pulled away. No one waved. Some said she went to a distant town. Others said she went to live with a cousin. No one cared to ask. People only whispered a quiet warning to their children. Do not let greed and arrogance lead you. If you build a house on lies, the first rain will bring it down. Weeks passed. The noise died down. The house settled into a new rhythm, soft, clean, honest. Sandra woke before sunrise, sat by her window with tea, and watched light touch the flowers one by one. She did not feel empty. She felt clear. She sent a short note to the community group. "Thank you for your support. I will not fight with words. I will live with dignity. May we all treat workers with respect and protect our homes with truth." People replied with warm messages. Some even sent flowers. The news story was not about scandal anymore. It was about a woman who stood tall. Moral lesson. The tale of Sandra, Michael, Grace, and Joy carried a truth that no one forgot. Betrayal and pride bring downfall. Truth cannot remain hidden forever. A woman's dignity, once mocked, can become her greatest weapon of justice. And so Sandra's story ended not in tears but in triumph. She rose above betrayal, reclaimed her strength, and showed the world that no matter how dark the night, the dawn of truth will always come.